Hi, Wayne Bryan here. Welcome to another Flashback Friday. As you can tell from the wall behind me, the show we're going to look at today is Kiss Me Kate, a classic that debuted on Broadway in 1948, was filmed by MGM in 1953, appeared on the Hallmark Hall of Fame with its original Broadway stars, Alfred Drake and Patricia Morrison, in 1958, and which we most recently did in 2009. It all goes back, of course, to William Shakespeare, who wrote a play called The Taming of the Shrew. There's a lot of confusion about William Shakespeare. We know very few facts about him, really. But he seems to have written a lot of plays that we seem to still be doing and adapting into other sorts of mediums. The Taming of the Shrew was evidently written sometime between 1590 and 1592, and it deals with the penniless Petruchio who is willing to marry for money, and he hears about an ill-tempered woman that he's supposed to woo if he is to get her dowry. When this show is performed in an imbalanced way, it can be an uncomfortable show to watch if it feels like the man is taking advantage of the woman. But if they are equally balanced actors, and if the direction is smart, and if we truly believe that both parties are interested in the other, and they are willing to fight and wrestle and laugh and love together until they finally become one, then it can be a pretty exciting show to watch. There was a married couple, Alfred Lunt and Lynn Fontanne, who did lots of plays together, and they decided they would bring The Taming of the Shrew to Broadway in 1935. A lot of the performances were watched from backstage by a 17-year-old fellow named Arnold St. Suber. He had a friend in the show, and the stage doorman would let him in, and he would watch the goings-on from backstage. Alfred Lunt and Lynn Fontanne were a very volatile married couple, and when you make them actors on top of that, you just know things could get explosive, and evidently they did. Later on, St. Suber would say, what was happening on stage in the comedy was genuinely funny. What was happening backstage was hilarious. Evidently, the two actors would come off stage from their scenes together and were just abusive and funny and profane with each other. And he said the show off stage was funnier than the one on stage. Well, some years later, St. Suber was now an established theater professional. He was a stage manager, and he was out of work, and he was trying to drum up a project. And he remembered his experience watching that show, and he thought it would be great fun to create a play about the Lunts, or some married couple, who is doing the taming of the shrew. He brought the idea to his friend Bella Spiewak, who was a playwright. She was half of a married writing team of Sam and Bella Spiewak, but she and her husband were estranged at the moment. So she came over and started talking with St. Suber about what they could do to create this show. They dreamed up names for the two leading characters. The leading lady would be Lily Vanessa. It turns out that Lynn Fontanne's real name was Lily Louise Fontanne. And the leading man would be Fred Graham, named after Alfred Lunt. So they had their names, they had their idea for a plot, but Bella Spiewak had done a musical with Cole Porter and thought that they should be writing a musical, and they would contact Cole Porter. Cole Porter was the darling of the 1920s and 30s. He wrote very funny songs, beautiful songs, beguines, love songs, list songs. His songs were not usually attached to any particular character or have much to do with the plot, but in the era when Cole Porter was writing shows in the 20s and 30s, it wasn't so important. But in 1943, the show Oklahoma changed all that. And suddenly, musicals were supposed to be more important and better integrated between the script and the score. Cole Porter had suffered a terrible horse riding accident in 1937 and lived the rest of his life in great pain and could only walk with great, great difficulty. But Bella Spiewak came over and told him the idea for the show, and he was immediately enthusiastic. So they decided that they would write a musical about a married couple putting on The Taming of the Shrew. They cast it with two really fine singing actors, Alfred Drake and Patricia Morrison. They were both people who could handle the Shakespearean dialogue and could really sing legitimately, and that's what was needed for this show. John C. Wilson was a fellow who had been one of the producers of The Taming of the Shrew that Lunt and Fontanne had done, and he came on board as the director. And a very fine scenic designer named Lemuel Ayres, who happened to be one of the co-producers of this new project, designed sets that were very attractive even if they were inexpensive. Because Cole Porter hadn't had any hit shows for a while, it was hard raising the money, but St. Suber finally did. He raised $180,000, which is all it took to put on a Broadway musical in 1948. And he raised that money from 72 different investors, many of whom were chorus people in other Broadway shows. They went into rehearsal and they took it to Philadelphia to try the show out for 3 weeks before bringing it to New York. And it became clear that it needed a little bit more work. So Bella Spiewak called her estranged husband Sam, and he came back to the marriage and onto the project as one of the writers. So Sam and Bella Spiewak are the librettists, Cole Porter the composer. The show opened on Broadway, and it won the first ever Tony Award for Best Musical, also for Best Score and for Best Book, and for Best Leading Man, Alfred Drake. It was filmed in 3D in 1953 by MGM Studios. And in 1958, Alfred Drake and Patricia Morrison, who did not get to do the film version, came back to NBC TV and did a wonderful TV adaptation of Kiss Me Kate for the Hallmark Hall of Fame. It's available to watch on streaming, and I recommend that you, if you're interested in any of this, you go look up all of these people and spend some time with them on YouTube. There's so much to enjoy about Kiss Me Kate and the Taming of the Shrew. Our production in 2009 was very inventively directed by Jimmy Brennan, and it had great choreography by Patty Colombo. Just stupendous. Our musical director was Thomas W. Douglas, and we had a great cast. Mike McGowan played Fred. He has since been back here to star in South Pacific and The Sound of Music. And our leading lady was Jessica Tyler Wright, who started in our young company and now has very excellent Broadway and New York credits. Daryl Reuben Hall played Paul, and he gets to lead the song Too Darn Hot. Nedra Dixon played Hattie, his compatriot. Lois Lane, who plays Bianca, was portrayed by Kimberly Foray. And Bill Calhoun, who portrays Lucentio, was played by Wes Hart. Two wonderful gangsters were played by Gordon Joseph Weiss and James Larson. And this resident company of performers in 2009 was really spectacular. They've gone on to Broadway careers, almost all of them. And in Too Darn Hot, you'll see a great little pas de deux featuring Kaylee Cronin, who is currently with the Broadway cast of Mrs. Doubtfire, and Kevin Munhall, East High grad, Jester Award winner, who was recently seen on Broadway in Tootsie. Our production in 2009 used the new orchestrations and the Tony Award-winning costumes from the 1999 revival. I hope you'll enjoy clicking on the YouTube link and seeing highlights from Music Theater Wichita's 2009 production of Kiss Me, Kate.